Hi there, this is Ideas on Truth, and I'm Lisa Taylor. Welcome to the program. I just had an amazing weekend going through a Brene Brown workshop on her book, Dare to Lead. And I just wanted to share a couple of ideas that came out of this because it's just, well, first of all, it's all encompassing, and I can't possibly give you all of it, but I just want to give you a few of the nuggets that really stood out to me. One of the big ideas is about vulnerability and the fact that vulnerability really is the foundational point of creativity, of courage, of bravery, of innovation, that without vulnerability, without being willing to fail and fail miserably and rise again and come up from that, we don't ever get to the point of being courageous or creating something new or innovating. So that the idea of vulnerability and kind of digging into that concept was a huge part of this weekend. I am also wanting to share the idea of talk around shame. Brene Brown does a lot of work on this, obviously, and I really like the image that she gave of shame being this sort of gremlin creature that puts us in a vice. We're either not good enough or we're too big for our britches. And it comes at us from both sides and kind of keeps us in this box of feeling like, oh, I'm bad. And you probably have heard the difference between shame and guilt. Shame is I'm bad. Guilt is I did something bad. So guilt is about behavior. Shame is about ourselves. So shame keeps us in this box of I'm bad, I'm not worthy, I don't matter. And if we start to feel a little bit better about ourselves and kind of dig our way out of shame, then shame hits you on the other side and says, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You're getting too big for your britches. So you're kind of caught between these two things. At least that's what shame would like to do. So then how does one get oneself into that vulnerable state and deal with the whole shame monger fighting against that? So, coming on and talking about truth and love and these ideas that I hold dear, one of the other exercises was coming up with just two of our values, the two most important values in our life. And I boiled it down after looking at many, 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 many on a list to truth and love. And a lot of other things kind of fall under those categories. So when I stand here and I say, these are the things that I'm thinking about and that my heart is in, and I put myself out there, and then I go off camera and I do some stupid thing and make a fool out of myself or scream at somebody or do something that's not truthful or loving at all, mostly loving. Truthful, I think I get most of the time, but sometimes I'm not true to myself. So then I think, who am I kidding? Who am I kidding going on here? And I know that we all feel these things. The things that we hold most dear are the areas in which we get most challenged and fail miserably. And that's normal. The good news is that's normal. We all do it. We all feel shame. We all fight against that. We all are scared of vulnerability. Oh, the other thing that's really cool, that courage, the opposite of courage and bravery, is not fear. The opposite of courage and bravery is armor. Because Brene did all this research, many, many people, but she's done a lot of research with the military. And she was talking to a room with, I guess, hundreds of people, soldiers who had been in battle. And she said, okay, somebody raise their hand and tell me when you were in a vulnerable position where you didn't feel, or when you were being courageous and you didn't feel vulnerable or feel afraid. And none of them could say that they were in a place of courage where they were being courageous and they weren't at the same time feeling vulnerable and feeling afraid. So the vulnerability piece, obviously the seed, the foundation of courage, but also the opposite of that is not fear, because a lot of times when people are being courageous, they are scared. There is fear there. The opposite of being courageous and vulnerable is armor, is when we shield ourselves and we put those shields up so much that we're not allowing ourselves to shine through. We're not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable or to go out and brave risk failing. Because when you're being courageous, you do risk failing. And then it gets into, what do you do when you fail? How do you get up? And I loved this part of this training that talked about, there are a lot of times that companies talk about being courageous and going out and doing courageous things, but they don't tend to teach you how to get up from failure before they ask you to go out and do that. So the idea of understanding how to rise when we fall, how to get up after we've been knocked down, how to start again when we've failed miserably, having that skill first before we go out and ask people to be courageous and dare greatly is an amazing way of doing it, because it makes sense. It makes sense if you want somebody to be courageous that you teach them how to get up from falling first, because then they can go out with a little bit more confidence and feel like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be courageous. But if I fall, and I will, because that's kind of built into the process, I'll know how to get up. So how does this relate to spirituality? How does this relate to the divine laws that I talk about here? To me, and I always only speak for myself, but maybe you can relate. To me, having those tools to rise up when we've made the mistake, to rise up to our level of consciousness that aligns with our true self, having those steps in place to get to that place of understanding, because this is a radical science. Leaning on God, leaning on spirit, living in spirit, and denying, in the right sense of denying, because I don't want to deny our humanness, but denying the power of egoic thinking, denying the power of fear-based thinking, denying that takes courage. It takes being vulnerable with all the stuff inside. There was a poem we had to write at the end of this weekend. And one of the lines in the poem, it was a poem that we had to say who we are. I am. Every line had to start with I am. And you could say anything you wanted, but one of the lines in the poem that I wrote that I absolutely love, I love this wording. I am the messy organizer of self-proclaimed faults. That's cool, huh? I am the messy organizer of self-proclaimed faults who is getting braver to not just let the light shine through my armor. Oh, the chinks in my armor. You know what? I should read you the whole thing. What do you think? Should I read you the whole thing? Mary Beth is watching. Mary Beth. Mary Beth was the leader of this workshop that I took this weekend. And I got to say, Mary Beth is a phenomenal facilitator. So I'm really glad you're watching. And I'm about to read my poem. Do you think I should, Mary Beth? You've heard it once. What do you think? Should I just go for it? You know what? I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to go for it. So this was written, I have to say, this was the end of the workshop. We were given 15 minutes. And so it's not a piece of art. This is just me being raw and vulnerable, and I'm putting it out there. Okay. I am the infinite idea of God, of truth and love and spirit and infinite intelligence. I am the honest, intuitive, Vespa-riding badass. I am the little girl, hiding and afraid to stand out too much, to be seen as too big, to be called conceited or full of myself. I am the humble listener waiting for inspiration to lead me to serve others with love and patience and kick-ass honesty. I am the whole person, the feminine and the masculine, the warm embrace and the steady resolve, the strong leader and receptive student, the funny, irreverent, take no prisoners go-getter that runs towards fear. I am the messy organizer of self-proclaimed faults, who is getting braver to not just let my light shine through the chinks in my armor, but daring greatly to take my armor off, one shield at a time. So that is my poem. Actually, this was a really cool exercise, and I encourage any of you to take 15 minutes and sit down and write a poem, 5 to 10 lines. Every line has to start with I am, and identify yourself. So dare greatly, be vulnerable, go read Brene Brown's work. She's amazing. Most of you know her anyway, but I'm just here to applaud Brene's incredible body of work, from The Gifts of Imperfection to, what is the second one? I totally blanked. The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, Braving the Wilderness, and Dare to Lead. And I think there are some other ones in there, but those are the ones that I'm most familiar with, and I just cannot recommend her work highly enough. And if you are interested in doing a workshop, a Dare to Lead workshop, there are facilitators who are that have stamps of approval from Brene's organization that can facilitate those. And Mary Beth Beaulieu, who's watching right now, is a wonderful facilitator, and I know she's doing some more workshops coming up. You'd have to contact her to find out. All of the facilitators can be found on Brene's website, her Dare to Lead website, so I encourage you to do that. This is Ideas on Truth. I am Lisa Taylor. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this out and like what you see, and send me an email at ideasontruth@gmail.com. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel, because, you know, it helps. Every little bit helps. All right. I love you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.